Leana Less, and so I have the privilege of leading the marketing organization at the moment. I'm from South Africa. Love South Africa, born and raised South African. Every business is different. Every business's definition of marketing is different. We are the brand that is an enabler as well for people to really truly live that lifestyle. We've celebrated the perfectly imperfect holiday. Branding is the long game. When you do promotions, that's the short game. Value is such an easy short-term game. Branding is a long game. Expanding our footprint to have ambassadors, we are hoping to have about 4,000 ambassadors that will be a part and an extension of the marketing team. For an organization that is 110 years old, that is phenomenal as an enterprise, can ensure that families, can dress themselves at an affordable rate, and that's still true today.
Well, good. This will be fun. So we'll dive into like your background, your history. We'll get into some of the company stuff, your observations when you came on. We'll get into what you're working on now, what you see for the future.
Good.
So who are you? What are you doing here?
Well, who am I? Who am I? The age-old question.
Yes. No one's been able to answer that yet.
No, I'm working on that. Leana Less, and so I have the privilege of leading the marketing organization at the moment, and only joined in June. So 6 months, 7 months? But it feels like 2 years.
Yeah, well, cool. Where are you from? You've got a great accent, first off, so we should probably address that. Where are you from?
Yes, I have an amazing accent. I'm from South Africa. Love South Africa, born and raised South African. I was born literally in the middle of South Africa. South Africa's got 3 capital cities. So I was born in the judicial city of Bloemfontein. So I'm Afrikaans is my home language. So I had to learn English in school. Everybody learns English in school. And then when you leave school and you go into business, I don't know nearly enough for English to survive. So you learn much faster when you're thrown into the deep end. And most of my family is still there. I left South Africa in 2008 with my husband, but the rest of our family is all still there. So it's just the two of us here in America.
Your husband's from South Africa as well?
He's from South Africa too. We've been married now for 21 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He's a saint. I left South Africa first. I got an amazing job opportunity to go to Istanbul. But at the time, we couldn't get him a spousal work visa. So I left him behind in Johannesburg. It was supposed to be a very short assignment. And 4 years later, my husband said to me that he's the only single married man that he knows. And so I was very worried. It sounded like way too much fun. So we moved to Dubai. So he could join me in Dubai. So we were in Dubai for nearly 4 years. And then from Dubai, we moved to Atlanta. Loved Atlanta, an amazing city. So that was the first time we were in the US. Ended up in Minneapolis. So very cold. Similar to Florida today, just much worse. And now we're in Florida. Absolutely amazing. So definitely more a climate that I'm used to here in Florida.
What were the job stops on the way? So you said you got your first opportunity in Istanbul. But maybe actually before we get to that, what was your childhood like? What was it like growing up in South Africa?
Oh, I had an amazing childhood, I will say. We had I would say, simple childhood. When we were down in Bloemfontein, I was very, very blessed. We were a very close family. My dad has a twin sister. And so I think she just assumed that she's my mom as well. So I was very blessed to have 2 mothers my entire life. And so I could always play with her kids, and really just an amazing childhood. I think we did all the simple things and all the naughty things, and, it's steal fruit. It made some people really upset. But really just an amazing childhood. I think, and then we had some hardship.
Is that a thing? Everybody steals fruit in their childhood, or what is that all about?
I assumed so.
Okay.
Is it not?
Might be a South African thing.
I don't know. When you have fruit trees in your garden and they're hanging with these beautiful apricots, I mean, temptation.
It's tempting. Right.
Temptation is real. So we were there, and we had a little bit of hardship. My dad was in a very bad accident when I was very young. And so as a result, my mom bravely decided that we needed to move to Johannesburg. It was closer to where my brother had to go to school. He had to go to a special school for children with, brain damaged children, and he couldn't see. So he had to go to a school in Pretoria, which was up north. So we moved to Johannesburg. My mom had to put him in boarding school. So that was really good for him, I think, to learn his skills and become a little bit more independent. And so I went to boarding school too, so that it was fair for both of us. And I think that was a fascinating experience. Boarding school is, I think, people always use it as a threat. I'm going to send you to boarding school. But I loved boarding school at the end. First year was tough, but then the following years was amazing. You're at school, you're living with your friends, you can do all the activities that you want to do. So as regimented as what it was, I really loved that discipline, I think, and I ended up towards the end really thriving under that level of structure. So that was, for me, definitely good at the end. Good at the end. In the beginning, I cried a lot. I remember calling my mom and crying so hard, and she would just talk, and I was so emotional I could literally not speak because you had to queue. There was one phone. So you had to queue to put your money in the phone to phone your mom, and by the time I got there, I was just so emotional. I would just cry and cry. I think multiple calls where my mom would just talk like nothing is wrong, telling me about her days, telling me she'll see me over the weekend, and all I could say was goodbye and I love you, and then the call was done. But that was only the first year. Thereafter, she was like, why are you never calling me?
It's a good thing, Mom.
It's a good thing, Mom.
Okay, so then what was your career track prior to Bealls?
Career track was interesting. So my mom was working for the South African Broadcasting Corporation, and she would always get tickets to the most amazing concerts. And so at this one concert, I met somebody who was looking for an intern in advertising. And that was my first job, is starting to work in an ad agency on the media side. And I was an electronic buyer, so really only bought space for television and radio. And very quickly got the opportunity to move up from there. So moved from just buying into strategy, worked at quite a few agencies in South Africa. And again, I think from a marketer perspective, it's a really good place to start your career. I always say to people, you learn how to ask the right questions, because in an agency, time is money. You need to be really clear on what your consumers need, what your client needs, to get that done and get that out the door as quickly as possible. So really great learning ground on the agency side. At the end, Coca-Cola was one of my clients. I had Coca-Cola, I had Procter & Gamble, I had Nokia, so really clients that had a sub-Sahara Africa footprint. So worked with Coke for a few years, and my client at Coke at the time was the media director for the African continent, and he got an opportunity to move to Asia Pacific. And I remember when his position became available, he said, why don't you throw your name, in the ring and see, just interview, can't guarantee anything. And so I interviewed, and I think that really changed my life. At that stage, I thought I had it made. I was in Johannesburg. I was working in an agency that I loved working in, getting great exposure. And I knew, however, when I took the job at Coke, I would be able to start to travel. That was a really big perk of the business, is that you could travel, you can go to all these countries, you can learn so much more. And I already, just in the little bit of exposure that I had at that stage with the global team, was just so impressed by the center of excellence and how they were really writing the book on what marketing needed to look like. And so that was a fantastic opportunity. So I was lucky enough to land that position, started as the media director for Africa. And Coca-Cola restructures often based on the business needs. So the first restructure that I had to go to, they decided to merge Africa and Eurasia at the time, which was all the countries from Russia across to Turkey and down, so India, Bangladesh, Nepal. So when they decided to merge, I was very, very nervous. But as a result of the merge, I was lucky enough to continue my role, but just with an expanded geography. And I had the ability to do that out of Istanbul. It was much easier to do it out of Istanbul. It's very far to travel from Johannesburg to get to all the markets. The rest of the team was all based in Istanbul. So I think from a collaboration perspective, it would be essential for me to have been in Istanbul. And so, as I said, one thing led to another. The team was amazing. I loved living in Istanbul. I love history. So having all your weekends free with no husband and no laundry, I could go to so many museums and just learn so much. And the team there was extremely generous as well. So
what
really
year
loved
was it
that.
again that you were in Istanbul? What years?
I was in Istanbul, I believe, 2007 onwards. And I was lucky because in 2010, South Africa hosted the Football World Cup for soccer. And so I got to go home quite often and help the team with projects like that as well. And then moved to Dubai, as I said, purely from a personal perspective, because my husband couldn't be there. It does become challenging. I think the last year in Istanbul, when I saw my husband that year, Christmas, and we did the math, we spent 18 physical days together in the entire year, which is very little time. And this was before technology is the way it is today. Facebook didn't exist. Turkey banned YouTube at the time, so we couldn't even Skype. We were on BlackBerry Messenger, and so not the best mode of communication. But in retrospect, those were probably, it's very seldom that I can say that today I look back, we don't have 18 days in the year that I can say we stopped everything, and those 18 days we just focused on each other. So in a way, it was 18 amazing days, but not sustainable. You miss that everyday companionship. So moved to Dubai, a fantastic opportunity. The Middle East is so different. All the markets were different. I think that was for me the privilege of having that territory with Coca-Cola. 98 markets and all fundamentally different. And I remember we had a fantastic CMO at the time, Felipe Burgas and Amanda Manshia. They shared the role. And the two of them always said, you cannot have a plan B. You always have to plan for plan A and make sure that plan A is the right plan. And in a market with so many differences, it meant that you have to find what was that single human truth. What was that one thing that bonded all people? And it took you back to the core of humans every time. And there was this beautiful video that they used to play that would show, people crying, at a funeral, or people celebrating a wedding, or just having that birth of a child. There's certain things that doesn't matter who you are in the world culturally, are these moments that everybody celebrates. So how do you find those moments? So we did some fantastic work. I still think some of the best work, some of the best teams, and we all loved working together. That was the best part. We did great work because it was a great melting pot of ideas and just an openness to do anything at the time. And also to be resourceful. We were the region with the least money, I think. It's the developing countries. We didn't have the big budgets. So it was really amazing. And then Coke decided to restructure again. At that stage, I was in a group role for Eurasia and Africa with counterparts in Europe, Latin America, North America, and Asia Pacific. And they decided to consolidate that all under the global structure at the time and centralize with markets just executing. So I had an opportunity to move to Atlanta as a result and work in the Global Center of Excellence for Coca-Cola at the time. And it was fairly volatile. I think the organization changed a lot, whether it was centralized in the global team or then immediately being decentralized.
The Global Center for Excellence.
For marketing. So at that stage, you would basically determine what would the strategy be for all of the brands, what would the plans be, working with the regions and the markets to determine how that would be translated and localized. But it was really that think global, act local mentality where the most of the commercials were done centrally through the global team. There were some charter projects that the region teams would be a part of. And then, the next year it would be decentralized and Global's role would change fundamentally. So from leading the communication charge to actually just being in control of consolidating what the regions were doing and doing that roll-up task. So again, a really fascinating opportunity to learn how to work within a matrixed organization, learn how to either influence from afar or just collaborate to be able to get all the information that the organization needs to be able to continue to propel forward.
Nice.
Yeah.
So incredible experience.
Incredible experience.
Help form who you are today and your ability to
100%.
Yeah.
It was, for me, I always say to people, that was my university in marketing. It was such a well-structured team. And at the time when I was there was a gentleman called Omar Rodriguez. And Omar and Rebecca Messina and Scott McEwen, at the time, they had a project that was called What Does It Take to Be a Winning Marketing Organization? Because you had so many markets around the world, all with the same brands, all with the same playbook of this is the way that this company does marketing, and yet you had markets that would excel and markets that didn't excel. And so trying to understand what was that behavior and the skill sets that was required for us to be a winning organization. And so just learned so much constantly. Really a fantastic time with some of the greatest minds. I had a mentor at the time, also Ivan Pollard, that still to today, I still think I was privileged enough to work with the smartest man on the planet. He was truly so smart and would see the best in every person. And you wanted to just be a better person because Ivan saw it in you. So you immediately started to believe that about yourself. And so, yes, just fantastic people, fantastic brands, fantastic opportunity. But so at the end, why did I leave Coke? I never thought I would leave Coke. I honestly thought I was going to be there for life. But one of my last projects was focused on data and how do we consolidate the data within the organization. And because Coca-Cola is more of a brand organization, the bottlers produce the product. They do not sell the product. So you don't own that last mile to the guest as much. That sits within the retailer's hands. And so I was, a really good storyteller. I was a great marketer, but I felt that marketing at the time really started to become more and more about precision marketing. And even though my area had the most data, I could see that my counterparts, when you sit in some of these global, just collaboration rooms, they had a different set of data when it came to direct to consumer than what I had any set of skills in. So I moved to beauty at the time. I moved to Estee Lauder in hair care, which was fantastic. Very, very different operating model.
Just to chase the data.
For me to chase the data, fine, Matt, yes, to chase the data, to chase that shining.
I need more data.
I want to know why they buy, where they buy, how they buy. I need data hourly, not weekly and monthly. And so I chased the data. But Estee Lauder was fascinating. So in hair care, very, very different route to market. We had over 5,000 salons. Amazing opportunity. You've got the guest as a captive audience in that seat for at least, not if you're a man. If you're a man, maybe 10 minutes. But if you're a lady, you have that audience for a minimum 45 minutes. Sometimes it takes 2 hours that you are a captive audience in that environment. So how do you create that amazing experience in that environment? And how do you translate that high-touch experience into your retail areas and into your direct-to-consumer areas online as well? So really fantastic brand, great company, family business ultimately, great legacy as well. So I went from one iconic brand to another iconic business, which was really amazing. And then I left Estee Lauder because every business is different. Every business's definition of marketing is different. And so at Estee Lauder, I was a consumer marketer, and I didn't necessarily own that DTC component. There was elements of it that we owned, but I really wanted to spread my wings and own the marketing role and function end to end. So I really wanted an opportunity to own that consumer piece, own the channel piece, own the content piece, and I did it in retail. So I moved to Chico's FAS at the time and had the opportunity to consolidate their marketing teams. That was when I joined within each of the brands, and so really to centralize marketing, which was a great opportunity as well. That brought me to Florida.
What year did you get to Chico's?
2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. So it was a short stint, and here I am today at Bealls.
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So you came to Bealls. What were your initial observations joining the company? What was it like?
Well, let's first say, even before I joined the company, I've never heard of Bealls.
Okay.
And I know that I saw it. I remember when the recruiter phoned me and she's like, oh, I have this opportunity with Bealls. And I pictured myself, I always think when people do radio competitions, they must be sitting there frantically on Google trying to find the answers. I was like, Bealls? What's Bealls? And so I was really surprised. I lived very close to a Bealls. And I was hesitant, I would say, I think, to do the interviews because I'm like, they're just an unknown brand for me. And I've always worked for known brands. And then coming to realize as I was going through the interview process that I was probably one of the only people, definitely in Florida, who has not heard of Bealls and who did not know what Bealls was. So that in itself intrigued me. And I think everything that I have loved about the brands that I've worked for in the past, I could find it on the checklist as I was going through the interview process. So another heritage brand, phenomenal history in the brand, and just great people, I think grounded organization. And so I just became more and more and more intrigued about the opportunity to that point that I think by the time I left your office in the interview process, I was like, please let them offer me the job. Please let them offer me the job. I'm so excited about this opportunity. And so you ask about the observations. I think when I went through the interview process, I think both yourself and Deanne shared a lot about the evolution that the brand has taken. And these were big, bold steps to rebrand the organization, to rebrand the business. But I think I said it to you even in my interview, I don't feel that from a marketing side, I'm necessarily seeing that excitement yet of the rebrand. And so for me, my first observations when I sat down with the team, I realized why. I think for me, the history, especially in the marketing team for the last decade, was very focused on the value proposition for the consumer. And the value proposition for the consumer was defined as promotions, was defined as pricing, and that was the superpower of the marketing team. The marketing team's superpower was really in working with the merchants, defining those really important 50 items or 25 items and making sure that those were captured, the pricing was really clear, and that we got that communication in the consumer's hands. And with the shift in strategy, we need to build new superpowers on top of that superpower. We can't lose the value proposition, but the value proposition is evolving. And with that means that we have to start building these brands. And there is phenomenal stories to tell about the brands. I think for me, and we'll talk about the anniversary, but for an organization that is 110 years old, that is phenomenal as an enterprise. I think just the start of the entire enterprise for families, to making sure that families, can dress themselves at an affordable rate. And that's still true today. Again, it's one of those human truths. I think if each and every one of us today is wanting to make sure that our families are cared for, and that they have that sense of pride in our families as well. So I'm just so excited. So for me, it's building on that and redefining what value is within marketing and how we bring that value to the organization. So for me, the value has to change to better brand building, to improved storytelling, and taking the consumer along in that journey as well.
By better storytelling, what do you mean?
Better storytelling for me is, I think when you are just, let's say it this way, let's take the holiday campaign. I think the previous holiday campaigns, when we did, I said to the team, let me see everything that we've done in the last holiday campaign. The last holiday campaign, we had a great television spot, we had great flyers, but we combined the two brands in one. And I think at the time, whilst that is a fantastic media decision because it means that our dollars stretch further, because you can reach more guests with one message, I don't think we were clear enough necessarily in defining what the difference between the two brands are. And I think that's going to be important. And so it starts with what is the difference in Bealls and what's the difference in Bealls Florida. And so if we look at Bealls Florida for me today is such an amazing lifestyle story Florida for me is having this resurgence at the moment, post-COVID. Everyone's moved here. It has fundamentally changed what the makeup of Florida used to be. And so how do we celebrate that beautiful Florida lifestyle? The fact that maybe with the exception of this week and next week, it really is summer all year long. So let's say 48 weeks of summer.
January is cold, yeah.
Yeah, January,
can be very cold.
It can be very cold.
It's snowing in Tallahassee
It's
yesterday.
snowing in Tallahassee. I mean, and not just flakes, it is accumulation of epic proportion. So I think having that beautiful lifestyle, it's vitality, it's everything. And we are the brand that is an enabler as well for people to really, truly live that lifestyle. So how do we tell that uniquely Florida?
That's the question.
Stories.
You got to answer it, not ask it. How do we tell it? What do we do?
We do so much. So I think we started with holiday. Holiday for me was already on Bealls Florida, a little bit of that departure where we celebrated the perfectly imperfect holiday. And you could see it. It was that couple getting ready and setting it up, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's this beautiful outdoor setting that they had that went a little bit wrong. It's that couple that was on the way to their dinner, but you can see they're running a little bit late and they're trying to get there. You've got the lady on her bicycle because you can cycle out here. It's so beautiful, but she gets caught in that rainstorm. I think it's those little Florida moments that is really important. How do we build on that? We only showed that entertainment side during the holiday season. As we now move into spring 2 for us, we really want to celebrate the anniversary of the company. And that is an amazing opportunity for us. It's 110 years. So how do we start to peel some of the layers of that onion? And you and I have had fun. You keep saying, I think it was one of the first challenges you gave me is like, what does the A stand for us in Bealls? And so that's going to be an amazing story that we want to tell over the next few months. And we had fun with the A. We have looked at that A and everything. There is in our values, there's 3 of our values that starts with an A. We have, that active lifestyle for us that is a part of the A. For Bealls that we haven't spoken about, there's an opportunity to have ambassadors and empower our guests to be a little bit more. So I think for us in the marketing team, as we are mapping out our anniversary campaign, we are using that campaign for us as well as a team to say, let's use this as a masterclass for ourselves in that art of storytelling and how we create beautiful micro snackable content for the consumer that doesn't matter if you see one piece, it tells a story. If you add it together, you've got an even broader perspective of that story, but a really amazing opportunity for us to start to get a little bit deeper on the brands as we celebrate the anniversary this year.
Yeah,
yes.
For sure. No, it's exciting. What do you see as how do you differentiate between Bealls and Bealls Florida? You're talking about the 2 different ads, but with Bealls Florida sort of becoming more everyday value, and that's a change, and it's a strategic change that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but from a marketing standpoint, where you have 2 brands that are one is no longer high-low. It's not this promotional sale-based retailer that Bealls department stores used to be. It's now Bealls Florida, and it's about everyday value. So how do you communicate that message to the guest, and how do you differentiate the everyday value that Bealls Florida stands for in that experience versus the Bealls?
And I don't know that we've cracked that code yet, Matt. So we are in that process of experimentation. I think in hindsight, if we can go back to holiday, what we did in holiday, we really dialed up the lifestyle element and we didn't communicate value, I think, strong enough. We had a few areas where we communicated value. And so for us, that has to be that 2 sides of the coin. I think Bealls Florida has that benefit where you've got that Floridian piece that you can tap into. However, as you've just said, this is a brave, and I don't think that people necessarily, when we said that we are rebranding and we're moving towards everyday value, that is a big education piece that we need to do for the consumers today, because it's the opposite of what most other retailers are doing. We saw during Black Friday, etc. So we need to have more consistency in our value messaging so that our guests understand that we have moved to that everyday value component. That definitely, I don't think we've spent enough time to consistently tell that story. So for me, the difference between the two today is, and I think Roselle said it best for us in our last meeting, where Bealls Florida brings in a little bit more boutique brands that uniquely Florida, that makes sense in Florida. And I think Lisa and the team does an amazing job from a merchant perspective to be out there every day, getting the best deals and having that product change so nice and fast. That's why we've moved to an ambassador strategy for this year for Bealls, because the product moves so fast. Marketing will never be able to feature everything in a way that I think that the consumer can get excited about how much that store experience has changed. You might be in there on Saturday. That doesn't mean that next Saturday it's going to look like that. Expanding our footprint to have ambassadors, we are hoping to have about 4,000 ambassadors that will be a part and an extension of the marketing team to be able to show the guest exactly what has arrived, highlight the brands they love, the prices that surprise them, and not dictating to them how to tell those stories. I was very excited over the holiday season already, where they were picking up on social trends. So the social trend of guess the price and then you can put it in your cart. We had quite a few couples that did that through our influencer program over the holiday season. That was fascinating because we didn't brief them to do that. We didn't tell them, say that it was $18 and surprise, it's $18. You could see how, number one, they were 80% of the time very surprised about the value when they guessed wrong. And that's what you want. You want somebody to pick something up and say, I'm willing to pay $25 for this. And when you turn it around and it's $20, that's amazing. That shows you that the merchants have gone and really negotiated that best price for the guest. And then I think the second component to it is sometimes when they didn't guess the price right, they were still not willing to play their own game. I've seen many people break their own rules where they were supposed to put it back on the shelf, but they're going, but it is such a great brand and it's such great quality. It's such a heavy jacket. It has to go in the cart. So they end up breaking their own rules. So I think for us, the ambassadors is going to help us to tell the story on Bealls, which is new product, it's better brands, it's a wider selection at a fantastic price. And as we are starting to move into our more lifestyle messaging for Bealls Florida, really that opportunity, I think, to celebrate what Florida is and adding that value message for us consistently is going to be really important as well.
Yeah, and the brand message, of course, and I mean, really in both chains now at this point, they're so highly penetrated and great national brands that it's exciting. That's a great story to be able to tell.
It is such a great story to be able to tell, and I think it's the right time as well. I think the consumer, we've gone through so much uncertainty, and I think that consumer is now ready to start to spend again. I get that sense from consumers as well. So we are priced right, we are the right brands at the right time. So I definitely think this is exciting times for us as an organization.
Good. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's so on the one hand, so we're starting off with ambassadors in the Bealls business, yes, and we're not starting with ambassadors in the Bealls Florida business. Yes. But you see that being a part of the future at some point in the next. What are your thoughts on the future of ambassadors for Bealls Florida?
We want to learn and see exactly what is going to work in Bealls, and I also want to create a little bit of that differentiation today. So I think we've had such parallel strategies for the two brands that we will definitely use ambassadors in the future for Bealls Florida, but I want Bealls just to be that testing ground for us for a number of reasons. Number one is our footprint is expanding on Bealls. We are in more states at the moment. And so, again, that gives me an opportunity to do the differences between the hot doors and the cold doors. The ambassador content will give us an opportunity to really start to segment and to personalize more. We can segment by store. We know what content was created in that store. I can literally make sure that we target people in that catchment area. So I think the complexity that we face today from a Bealls perspective with the size of the marketing team that we have, this explosion in content is going to help us to fast-track segmentation and personalization within Bealls, which is, for me, the problem that we have to solve in Bealls today. The Bealls Florida challenge for us, I think, is a different challenge. We need to drive that uniqueness, especially in Florida, where I think the confusion between the two brands is obviously clearer because that's the only place where the two brands do collide. And so that brand building opportunity for me, we need to focus on brand. We need to let the guest understand that there is a difference between the two. And I want to do that first. That does not mean that we're not going to use influencers. We will continue to use influencers on Bealls Florida. And I want to give a shout out to our new media agency. We've just started with Brain Labs. It was one of the fastest transitions I've seen in my entire career. We pivoted to Brain Labs in October, and we were struggling to find influencers that is the right influencers for Bealls Florida. We do have an older guest, and I think sometimes it's really difficult when you brief influencer agencies to come back. We kept getting very similar to Bealls' profile, but we wanted people that I think is that generational, just richness that we have here in Florida as well. And I think this holiday season, we started to crack that code on getting the right influencers, arming them with the right message, and starting to pivot our messaging as well from don't wait for the sale. Everything in that store today is priced right. Our loyalty program is a phenomenal loyalty program. I have had to navigate loyalty programs where the guest earns points, they save those points, and then they have the disappointment of getting into the retail environment and realizing that there's limitations on which they can redeem those points. We don't have any of that in place today.
We fixed all that a couple of years ago.
We fixed all of that. Yeah. And so, but I still think that we don't necessarily, we know it, but I think that needs to be top of mind, I think, as a part of that message as well for our guests. So that long-term value proposition there's still so much to do. So much to do, I think, to get that clarity for our guest.
Yeah, for sure. On the Bealls side, which is, of course, 3/4 of our business now, we've gone through this rebrand, as you mentioned, and within the state of Florida, we've gone from Bealls Outlet to Bealls, and out of the state of Florida, we've gone from Burke's Outlet to Bealls. And so on the one hand, it's just a simple sign change, same colors on the sign, same store name with Bealls, but could be confusing to guests, and specifically probably outside of the state of Florida, where we've gone from Burke's Outlet to Bealls, and same store location, same colors, same branding. Inside of the store didn't change. Product didn't change. Of course, product's always getting better and better and better. But what kind of a challenge was that for, and what kind of challenge does that continue to be for the marketing team on the store specifically outside of the state of Florida, where you've gone from something that someone's known for a long time now, a couple of decades in some cases with Burke's Outlet, and shifting that over to Bealls?
Yep. It's a great question. I think and I was unfortunately not here when all of that happened, and I know that the team did such a good job. I was extremely impressed, and I feel the few opportunities that I've had to go outside of the state as well on store visits with the team and go and experience those stores. I think what is important, Matt, is at least the organization invested, number one, in doing that all at once. So I think kudos to the team on that, because that was obstacle number one, I think, is to make sure that wasn't done in phases. And so at least there is that immediate cleanup that happened. And I think also with that cleanup, it is beautiful. I think our stores look amazing. Our stores are on par with each competitor out there. So it's a great environment. It lives up to that newness badge. I think if you see something new and you go and you want to experience that freshness. But I think, again, it's easy to change the sign on the outside of the store. It takes a long time for us to continue to work on getting that perception and mindset and history changed for the consumer. And we are seeing it today. We are definitely still seeing it. I can't remember who in my career, I need to go back because it will be in my notes, but I had a mentor early in my career that used a very good, in fact, I do know, it was somebody years ago in radio that used to tell us back in South Africa that Muhammad Ali didn't win all of his matches with a knockout. There were many matches where he had to punch and punch and punch and punch. And sometimes that is what marketing has to do. We have just done the relaunch we are still going to have to punch and punch and punch. And all that means is frequency. We need frequency and consistency in terms of making sure that that message comes across to the consumer and that they know what we stand for and that they feel that they're invited to come into that environment, because the change wasn't just in the door that the ribbon cutting happened and the doors opened. There's many guests that didn't cross that threshold at that point in time. There's many guests that haven't gone into that new environment yet and experienced it. So I would say from a marketing perspective, it's going to take us a good 2 to 3 years of consistently inviting the consumers into that environment and for them to experience that change, for them to really transition. And we are seeing it. I mean, for me, the easiest place that we see it is in our brand house tracker. Our brand house tracker shows us that we have low awareness in that name and that people still have a higher awareness of Berg's Outlet, etc., even though that branding doesn't exist out there today. We can see that the guest still is got that muscle memory where that name is what they have memorized for so long. And that is why we are doing the brand house tracker as well, because I want the team to understand that branding is the long game. When you do promotions, that's the short game. Value is such an easy short-term game. Branding is a long game. And so for us, I think that brand house tracker is going to be essential for us to see something that you might not see today. You don't see it in the numbers today. You don't see it in the search results today. But over time, that will show us if we are moving the needle, and for us to stay consistent, because it will also show us when we are not moving that needle fast enough. But branding is definitely a longer game. And it was, for me, also one of the reasons why I chose this opportunity, because I felt during that interview process that both yourself and Tian was committed to that longer game versus being impatient and going, it's not going to work. We need to see the numbers today. This was a significant change, and it does take time to change perception in the consumer's mind, especially since they have so much to deal with, especially in the branding world. They are inundated with messages every day. But that's why we need to get that consistent message.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's an advantage for us over larger public corporations, is just that we do have that patience, and we're not attempting to do everything in order to just satisfy quarterly Wall Street earnings reports. We're trying to make decisions for the long term. It's more about being here for the long term and being a healthy employer and being able to provide for our employees and our people, as opposed to let's get a big win right now. If it's impossible to do that, we of course we need to act quick, and of course we do try to get things done as efficiently as possible. But yeah, I think in general, Bealls plays the long game better than most people do.
100%. But you just said it. It's that juxtaposition between having the patience and the commitment for the long game and the determination for the long game, but also having that lean and flat organization to be able to make the right decisions at the right time. So you have a little bit of speed when you need speed. You have speed when you see an opportunity to capitalize on that opportunity. But I think everyone is in it for that longer game without missing the opportunities that is immediate.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about for 2025?
2025, I'm excited about a lot of things, Matt. I'm not going to give you my prioritized list, but I was really excited only because poor Florida and the South, quite frankly, last year was a devastating year. I mean, the number of unprecedented weather events.
So you're most excited that it's not 2024 again?
I don't have a guarantee that there's not going to be a repeat, but it gives me hope. I think that there's a level of resilience and a level of rebuild. But yes, I'm glad that it's not 2024. In fact, I've said that January is still part of 2024, man. There's a lot that we need to wrap up in January. For me, February kicks off the year. But I'm most excited about there's energy in rebuilding. And I think that rebuild after what was a devastating year is an amazing opportunity. We are in rebuilding mode. And what a privilege to do a rebuild in a year where we are lucky enough to have this milestone moment of 110 years. And I looked back at the 100-year celebration. I think the team did an amazing job during the 100-year celebration of the company as well. So there's a very high bar that was set that we want to achieve as well. And we want to capitalize on this moment because there are so few companies. I think I said it in the last town hall, only 0.5% of companies in the world become older than 100 years. So it is not something for us to not capitalize on and be, just let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that and take the lemonade that 2024 gave us and turn it into, or the lemons that 2024 gave us and turn it into lemonade this year. So I'm excited, and I'm excited for what that's going to mean for my team. It is such an amazing project to work on. So I know what a bonding experience that is going to be for us as a team as well. That's number one. And number two, our e-commerce business is a huge opportunity still. I think we have, again, the organization has invested in the right technology, in the right infrastructure. It's now up to marketing. We have done a technology replatform. We have not done a marketing redesign yet on top of the technology that we have available. And so for me, 2025 is definitely a year for us to crack that DTC code in a way that we haven't yet. Our stores set the bar so high. We look at the research we get. You go into that environment. We have some of the best store associates, I think, in the country, again, because they love the business so much. And I think we also invested in Bealls, and that translates in that beautiful relationship that they have with their guests every day. How do we translate that experience into digital? How do we create a high caring digital experience? Because it's so easy to do that in store. But again, as I said, we don't have any excuses. We have all the tools. We have, I think, the right team and the right passion, and we have the right products. We know that we've got the right products. We'll always want more products, merchants. But it is an exciting opportunity to bring all those puzzle pieces together. And really, I believe that for us, that is going to be that next channel that could be a huge unlock for us for the business too.
Give me two predictions for 2025. One Bealls related and one global.
One Bealls and one global. I think for me, Bealls, my prediction is that we are going to consistently, from a marketing perspective, unlock our reactivation. We've had a challenge coming out of COVID with reactivation of guests, and I think we have the data. We had a few moments in holiday where we could see that our strategy was paying off. So for me, that's going to be my prediction, is that we are going to crack that code.
Define reactivation for everybody.
Reactivation for us is guests that has not shopped us 13 months or longer. And so we have been challenged in the last 3 years, really, where we have seen our reactivation numbers continue to dwindle. And it's really important to have a healthy file. We can't have a healthy business if our file doesn't grow. And for us, there will always be attrition. Our existing customers is a solid base. But on that tail end of the reactivation, we are not reactivating quick enough. So that number has been dragging us down quite substantially, and we're not bringing in enough new guests. I think our ambassadors will crack the code for us on new, and we definitely have an opportunity. So we're going to bring that file back to growth. And that's a very big, bold statement to make and a commitment to make, both myself as well as on behalf of the marketing team. We're excited about getting that done this year. I might not get it in positivity yet, but we're going to start to reverse that decline. But that is our number one focus, and what for us, if you predict it, you're going to make it happen. So let's put that out there. Let's predict it. And I think out in the world, I think is probably going to be stronger adoption of AI. I think people have been dabbling in it. And I've said it earlier, a few years ago, it was the metaverse, it was NFTs, like all these things. I think the same as the internet was not going to go away, I don't think AI is going to go away. AI is
the
definitely...
metaverse went away.
the metaverse went away. And I predicted that.
Yeah.
There were some shiny tools where you go, you have to play in it if you're one of those brands that I think if you're a Nike, if you're Coca-Cola, you have to be there because you're at the cutting edge of those marketing frontiers. But I don't think that AI is one of those, like My Second Life or something that's just going to fizzle out. This is not here to fizzle. This is definitely here. And especially in marketing, we are already playing in it all the time. But it's going to change the way we do things in the most exciting ways possible. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any other thoughts or any other questions for me?
No. It's also, I mean, as I'm listening to you talking, I just, for me, it just makes me more and more excited because that's why we have such a positive story to tell this year. And I think the consumer, everyone is so ready for positive news. And I think when you've got something good to say, we need to say it. And we've got so much to be grateful for. And again, we are so lucky that we have such a loyal customer base. And so we just need to expose more people to the service that we bring every day and the products that we provide all the time. So really a phenomenal position to be in.
For sure. Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, it's great to chat with you today.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate your thoughts. Great to catch up with you.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Good.